Hi, this is SOSF. Alright, check this out. Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning. You're making coffee, scrolling through your phone, same old routine. But then you see it. Every single news channel, every website, every government alert is saying the same thing. They're here. And they've been here for a long, long time. It's not some grainy UFO video from a fighter pilot. It's the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the UK, leaders from all over the world, standing shoulder to shoulder in a live address, telling you that everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe is wrong. They're admitting that for decades, maybe centuries, they've been lying, keeping the biggest secret in human history, that we are not alone, and we have never been. What do you do in that moment? Does the coffee cup fall from your hand? Do you laugh? Do you immediately run to your window and look at the sky? Because that single moment, that's where our world, the one we know, ends, and something entirely new, something wild and terrifying and maybe incredible, begins. The game is over. The board has been flipped. Welcome to a whole new reality, folks. So, I was digging into this wild document, this strategic analysis report. It's not your typical academic paper full of jargon that makes your eyes glaze over. This thing reads like the secret playbook for the end of the world as we know it. It's a deep dive, a simulation, of what happens in the first hour, the first year, the first 50 years after the announcement. And man, it is a trip. It's not about little green men or flying saucers. It's about us. It's about how the entire structure of human society would buckle and snap the second the truth bomb drops. The first thing the paper talks about is what it calls ontological shock. It's a fancy term, but it's simple. Ontology is just the study of what's real. So, an ontological shock is when your fundamental reality gets sledgehammered into a million pieces. Everything you base your life on, history, religion, science, your own identity, it all gets thrown into a blender. Think about it. The government comes out and says, yeah, so, we've had contact. For a while. We kept it from you to, prevent societal collapse. That's how they'll spin it, right? A carefully managed PR statement. They'll try to control the narrative, frame it as a necessary secret, like parents hiding something from the kids for their own good. But that's not gonna fly. Not for a second. The trust in every single institution would evaporate instantly. It's what the report calls the second fall of authority. It's not just a scandal like Watergate. This is a betrayal on a species level. Every government, every scientific body, every media outlet that was in on it or was duped by it becomes worthless overnight. Who do you believe anymore? The official channels are now the liars. So where do people go? They go to the fringes. They go to the conspiracy theorists who were right all along. They go to leakers, to whistleblowers. Information becomes anarchy. Every person with a YouTube channel or a podcast has a new theory, and their guess is as good as the government's. Is it only one alien species? Or are there multiple factions? Are they benevolent, or are they hostile? The official story will be that they're peaceful, of course. But why would we believe them? They just admitted to the biggest lie in history. This creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum rushes absolute chaos. The document says we'd be forced to choose between competing versions of reality. Is this a liberation, or is it an invasion? There's no consensus anymore. Your neighbor might think they're angels sent to save us, while you're burying guns in the backyard thinking it's an infiltration. And you're both basing your reality on whispers and shadows because the official sources are radioactive. And that's just the information crisis. The psychological impact? Man, it's a spectrum. On one end, you've got what they call the overview effect. Astronauts get this when they see Earth from space. They see this tiny fragile blue marble, and it rewires their brain. They feel connected to all of humanity, and all the little borders and conflicts seem so stupid. Some people would feel that. They'd see the existence of aliens as proof that we're all in this together, one human family on a tiny rock. It could be beautiful, a catalyst for global unity. But let's be real, that's probably not where the majority of people are going to land. The report makes a brilliant point here. Scientists who study this stuff often look at how people would react to discovering microbial life on Mars. And the studies show people would be overwhelmingly positive. They see it as a discovery, a wonder, an opportunity. But this scenario is completely different. This isn't finding bacteria on a faraway rock. This is finding out there's a silent, advanced, and deceptive intelligence that has been cohabiting our planet. One is a discovery. The other is an infestation. One inspires wonder. The other inspires a deep, primal paranoia. The dominant reaction is going to be fear. Deep, animal fear. We have thousands of years of cultural programming for this. Every story we've ever told about the other, the stranger, the monster at the edge of the map, the invader from another land, it all gets projected onto them. The report calls them the ultimate outgroup. This taps into something ancient in our psychology. what some scientists call the behavioral immune system. We're hardwired to be suspicious of the unknown, the foreign, because historically, strangers brought disease, they brought conflict. Now, we're faced with the strangest strangers imaginable. This isn't just about being scared of their technology. It's xenophobia on a cosmic scale. Think of all the ugly moments in human history where we've scapegoated a group of people for our problems. Now, we have a non-human scapegoat for everything. The economy sucks? It's the aliens. The climate is a mess? It's the aliens. We'll blame them for everything. And what about the people who knew? The human collaborators? They'd be seen as traitors to the species. You'd have witch hunts, purges. The idea that an outside threat would unite humanity is a beautiful sentiment, but it's probably a naive one. The report argues we wouldn't unite against them. We'd shatter. We'd fight each other over who gets to define us versus them. Who's a real human? And who's a sympathizer? It wouldn't be humanity versus the aliens. It would be a messy, violent, global civil war between human factions, each with their own idea of how to handle the new neighbors. And this is all just in the first year. Once the initial shockwave passes and we start to pick up the pieces, the whole world reorganizes. The geopolitical landscape gets redrawn completely. All our current alliances, like NATO, all our international laws, they become instantly obsolete. They were designed for a world where humans were the only players. What does the UN do when one country has a direct line to a civilization a million years ahead of us? The New World Order, according to this report, would be a tiered system. It's not about who has the most nukes anymore. It's about who knew what, and when. Tier 1 would be the host nations. These are the countries, maybe the US, maybe a secret consortium, that have had direct, long-term contact. They've been cooperating, sharing secrets. They hold all the cards. They have an unimaginable strategic advantage. Tier 2 are the allied nations. They were in the loop, but not in the driver's seat. Maybe they were told some things, given some tech, but they weren't the primary partners. And then there's Tier 3, the ignorant nations. That's everybody else. The vast majority of the world that was completely in the dark. Now, they are at a massive, terrifying disadvantage. Think about what this does to global politics. An old alliance, like the one between the US, a Tier 1 nation, and, say, Turkey, a Tier 3 nation, is meaningless. Turkey now has more in common with its old rival, Iran, if they're both in the dark, than it does with its supposed ally who was hiding the biggest secret in existence. The world would realign, forming new blocks based on this knowledge hierarchy. It would be the know-it-alls versus the know-nothings. And that's when the new arms race begins. The report calls it astrogeopolitics. It's a race that makes the Cold War look like a schoolyard argument. But we're not racing for bigger bombs. We're racing for access. Access to alien knowledge, alien technology, energy sources that could make oil worthless, materials that could make steel look like cardboard, propulsion systems that could get you to Mars in an afternoon. This completely upends the strategic balance that has kept a fragile peace for 70 years. Mutually assured destruction. MAD only works if everyone knows the other guy can wipe them out. But what if the aliens, or their Tier 1 partners, have technology that can disable nuclear missiles mid-flight? There are already declassified reports and testimony from military personnel about UFOs doing just that, hovering over nuclear silos and shutting them down. If that's true, and one country has exclusive access to that defense shield, then MAD is dead. That country has first strike immunity. They can hold the entire planet hostage. The other nations would be faced with a choice: become a vassal state or risk annihilation. It's a recipe for absolute desperation, and desperate people do crazy things. And in all this, we're assuming the aliens are just a passive resource to be exploited. But they're not a goldmine. They're intelligent actors. They have their own agenda. And that is the biggest, scariest variable of all. What do they want? They could play kingmaker. They could pick a favorite nation or ideology and elevate it to global dominance. They could selectively share technology, playing human factions against each other, just like colonial powers did throughout history. You could see alien proxy wars, where human soldiers are fighting and dying on behalf of competing alien interests. It sounds like science fiction, but it's a playbook straight out of human history. And it gets even weirder. The power wouldn't just be with governments. A multinational corporation with the right connections could bypass nations entirely and make a deal directly with the visitors for some game-changing tech. A charismatic cult leader could start a global movement to either worship or fight the aliens, a movement more powerful than any single country. The whole chessboard gets incredibly complicated, with all these new players, all with their own agendas. It's a mess. Now let's talk about the economy. Our entire global economic system is built on two fundamental ideas: scarcity and human labor. Things have value because they're limited, and people get paid for their work to acquire those things. Alien technology could make both of those concepts obsolete overnight. Think about the Kardashev scale, this theoretical way of measuring a civilization's technological advancement based on how much energy it can use. A Type 1 civilization can use all the energy on its planet. A Type 2 can harness all the energy of its star. A Type 3, the energy of its entire galaxy. We're not even a Type I yet. We're maybe a 0.7. A species capable of routine interstellar travel is likely a Type 2 or higher. The report says introducing their technology isn't like inventing the smartphone. It's a Kardashev leap. It's like giving a 15th century blacksmith the keys to a 21st century automated factory. The leap is so vast, so disruptive, it breaks everything. Entire industries that form the backbone of our world, oil and gas, mining, manufacturing, shipping, they would become worthless, instantly. Imagine a clean, limitless energy source. The entire geopolitical importance of the Middle East vanishes. Trillions of dollars in assets and infrastructure become a museum exhibit overnight. The first reaction on the market? The biggest financial crash in human history. A complete and total meltdown. Then there's the labor market. We're already freaking out about AI taking jobs. The report uses AI as a conservative baseline for what would happen. This isn't about automating truck driving or customer service. This is about technology that could potentially automate everything. Physical labor, cognitive labor, creative labor. What job can a human do that a super advanced AI or nanotech assembler can't do better, faster, and for free? This would create what the author Yuval Noah Harari calls the useless class. Billions of people with no economic value in the new paradigm. It's not that they're lazy, it's that the game has changed so fundamentally that their skills are irrelevant. At the same time, a tiny sliver of the population, the people who can interface with the new tech, who can manage it, their wealth and power would explode. The gap between the rich and the poor would become a chasm wider than the Grand Canyon. And it might not just be an economic gap. What if the aliens have advanced biomedical tech? Gene editing, radical life extension, cognitive enhancements, and what if that tech is only shared with their elite human partners? You're not just creating a class divide anymore. You're creating a biological divide. It's no longer the haves and the have-nots. It's the enhanced and the naturals. And that kind of inequality, a literal speciation of humanity, is a nightmare scenario from which you can never recover. So, does this mean capitalism just dies? The whole system is based on allocating scarce resources. If you have technology that can produce energy, food, and goods at near zero cost, you've entered a post-scarcity economy. The concepts of price, profit, and wages become meaningless. Sounds like a utopia, right? Maybe. But the transition would be pure chaos. The report makes a chilling point: abundance can be weaponized. The people who control the means of post-scarcity production, the energy grids, the molecular assemblers, the nanofactories, they would have absolute power. They could create a new kind of technological feudalism. You pledge loyalty to the new lords, and you get your food, your energy, your goods. If you dissent, you're cut off. Survival becomes conditional on obedience. It's a comfortable prison. This is the long-term cultural and philosophical reckoning. After the chaos, after the political and economic dust settles, we have to figure out what it all means. What does it mean to be human in a universe that's not just ours? Every religion on earth would be thrown into an existential crisis. The one centered on humanity's special place in a divine plan would have the hardest time. Some would adapt. Theologians would find ways to incorporate the aliens into their worldview, as another of God's creations. You might see new, more universalist faiths emerge. But the more fundamentalist factions? They'd likely see the aliens through an apocalyptic lens. They're demons, deceivers, a sign of the end times. This could lead to violent schisms within major religions and the rise of new, radical anti-alien cults. Science, too, would be reborn. The discovery of a separate genesis of life would be the biggest event in the history of biology. It would suggest that life isn't a fluke. It's a fundamental principle of the cosmos. And their physics? A civilization that can travel between stars might have mastered things like manipulating space-time or accessing higher dimensions. Our understanding of physics, from Einstein to quantum mechanics, could be revealed as a charmingly primitive first draft. We'd have to invent whole new fields of study, astroanthropology or xenolinguistics. How do you even begin to understand the culture, the history, the worldview of a species that evolved on a different planet, under a different sun? The challenges of communication would be immense. It's not just about translating their language. What if they don't have concepts we consider universal, like individuality or linear time? True understanding might be impossible. We could be living right next to them and still be separated by an unbridgeable cognitive gulf. This brings us to the Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? One theory is the Great Filter. Some hurdle that civilizations hit that prevents them from becoming interstellar. Finding aliens who have been here for a long time flips the question. It proves the filter can be passed. The new question becomes, why haven't we heard from anyone else? Are our visitors the only ones who made it through? Are they the great filter itself, wiping out other civilizations? Or is the galaxy teeming with life, and there's a very good reason they've kept us in a cosmic quarantine? The answer to that question would define our new place in the universe. And finally, we have to redefine ourselves. What does it mean to be human? For so long, we've defined ourselves by what we are not. We are not animals, we are not machines. Now, we have a new mirror. We are not them. The aliens would force a long, uncomfortable process of self-reflection. What are our values? What is our culture? What is worth preserving? The document suggests a critical question will be about assimilation versus purism. Do we embrace their culture and technology, maybe even merge with them biologically? Or do we fight to preserve human purity at all costs? That debate would rage for generations, shaping our art, our politics, our very identity. The report suggests that in a world where technology makes human labor obsolete, our purpose might shift to the things that make us uniquely human: culture, creativity, philosophy, exploration. The humanities, the arts, the things our society often devalues, might become the most important strategic investment for our long-term survival. Not the survival of our bodies, which the aliens might be able to guarantee, but the survival of our soul, our identity. So where does that leave us? The report lays out a few long-term scenarios. A best-case symbiotic integration, where we form a partnership and create a hybrid civilization. A more tense apartheid scenario, where humans and aliens coexist but remain separate, with humanity as a kind of managed junior partner. And the worst case, a fragmented conflict, where the initial chaos never ends, and we splinter into warring factions, fighting over the scraps of alien tech they left behind. There's no easy answer. The whole thing is a giant, terrifying, exhilarating question mark. The disclosure wouldn't be the end of the story. It would be the beginning of a completely new one. It forces you to ask the biggest questions. Are we just a brief, passing experiment in this vast, ancient cosmos? Or are we on the verge of joining something much larger than we ever dreamed? I don't know, man. I don't think anyone does. But one thing is for sure. If that day ever comes, the world we knew is gone forever. And we'll have to decide, as a species, what comes next. See you next time.